Hello everyone and welcome to Smart World with CNBC. Bonjour à tous et bienvenue dans Smart World avec CNBC, votre émission 100% bilingue en anglais et en français. We are together to have an overview of the greatest business moments of CNBC. At the top of this program, Walmart et Microsoft font équipe pour le rachat de TikTok aux USA, les ventes d'ordinateurs boostées par la pandémie et le pari du recyclage du plastique échoue. Décryptage des nouvelles initiatives, c'est parti, let's go! Alliance surprise pour le rachat de TikTok, le géant agroalimentaire Walmart se joint à Microsoft pour le rachat de TikTok, a new race to buy TikTok's US operations. So why do they team up? Let's take a look.
Well, as promised, let's talk TikTok. The deal talk is heating up ahead of a potential forced shutdown of the app in the United States by the Trump administration. Julia Borson joins us now with the latest. Good morning, Julia.
Good morning to you. Well, while deal talks are progressing, TikTok is making contingency plans should a deal not happen and should it need to shut down its U.S. operations, telling us it's, quote, simultaneously developing plans to try to ensure that our U.S. employees continue to get paid in any outcome. Now, this comes after Walmart confirmed yesterday that it's teaming up with Microsoft to bid for TikTok as the government forces a sale by TikTok's Chinese parent ByteDance. Now, Walmart telling us, quote, we believe a potential relationship with TikTok U.S. in partnership with Microsoft could add this key functionality and provide Walmart for an important way for us to reach and serve omni-channel customers as well as grow our third-party marketplace and advertising business. On this news, Walmart and Microsoft shares both rose to all-time highs yesterday. You see Walmart up about 3%. RBC Capital Markets telling us that for Microsoft, quote, it makes strategic sense to include a close, trusted partner like Walmart in the bid, saying a Walmart-Microsoft TikTok combination would enable social commerce and, quote, Microsoft appears to be an appealing strategic partner for Walmart. Walmart does use Microsoft's back-end Azure as both companies battle Amazon on multiple fronts. Now, also, in addition to battling Amazon, for the first time, this puts Microsoft into competition with Facebook over those social ad dollars.
Je vous le rappelle, l'application TikTok est sur le point de conclure un accord pour vendre ses activités aux États-Unis, au Canada, en Australie et en Nouvelle-Zélande. Un accord qui se situera probablement entre 20 et 30 milliards de dollars. Pour les spécialistes du secteur, l'association Walmart-Microsoft est logique. Microsoft pourrait utiliser la plateforme de e-commerce de Walmart en pleine expansion pour vendre des produits sur TikTok. And TikTok began testing new social commerce features last year. They allowed users to add links to their profiles and videos. Même chose que le swipe up que vous pouvez voir sur Instagram. TikTok aimerait utiliser cette fonctionnalité. Vanessa Papas, PDG de TikTok par intérim, dit aimer cette synergie Walmart et Microsoft.
Vanessa, you've said a number of times that you're preparing for various contingencies. Yesterday, I reported on how you're taking steps to make sure you can keep paying your employees even if the app is shut down. What do you think is going to happen right now?
You know, we're exploring multiple paths. I think we all feel really confident about the future success of TikTok. And, you know, of course, we want to be a responsible company and make sure that we are looking after our employees in any scenario. But we really do think that we're going to have a positive resolution, and hopefully that will come soon.
So positive resolution meaning selling to one of these groups, either the Microsoft, Walmart, or the Oracle group. So it sounds like you're pretty confident that's going to happen.
I would say we're positive that we're going to have a successful resolution. I can't say which way that's going. Obviously, we're exploring multiple paths. But unfortunately, at this point, that's as much that I can share.
Now, and in terms of those paths, you know, these companies that are in talks with ByteDance about buying TikTok, Walmart, Microsoft, Oracle, these are not exactly brands that have a big audience in your demographic. Are you concerned that having a parent company that is a Walmart could turn off either your creators or your users and send them to rivals like Facebook's Reels?
Yeah, so I think, as mentioned before, you know, what makes TikTok so special and so unique is something that we're all, you know, any player is going to want to protect. And so for us in particular, this is something that we hold true. We understand why TikTok's really resonated, again, around the globe in providing this unique space for creative expression, for people to come together in these joyful moments and sharing, whether it's, a woman telling her father that he's about to become a granddad for the first time, to, family antics now that we're all in this work from home scenario, to just, families bonding, and we're seeing so much of that intergenerational connectivity. And so for us, again, we're really looking, how do we safeguard this community? How do we make sure that we continue to provide what everyone's coming to this platform and relying on us for on a daily basis?
Vanessa Papas affiche sa préférence. Notre priorité, c'est le déploiement de certaines fonctionnalités de commerce électronique. C'est un autre moyen pour nos utilisateurs de gagner leur vie, dit-elle. Je vous le rappelle, TikTok est sous pression et doit vendre son entreprise américaine avant le 20 septembre. And pandemic PC boom pushes HP sales $1 billion higher than expected. La vente d'ordinateurs a explosé mondialement. Un vrai boost pour l'entreprise HP. HP's fiscal third quarter performance benefited from ongoing demand during the pandemic amid a remote working and online learning wave. Let's hear more from HP Inc. CEO Enrique Lores.
Well, Enrique, I've got my unbelievable Elite book, my HP SureView on my desk, which I love. It's a touch screen. It's fantastic. Great resolution. I'm sorry I'm a salesman for you, but maybe that's okay. And it would be ideal if I had to move to be at home to stay in touch with the office and do my work. Is this the kind of thing that made this quarter so great?
Actually, as you said, we had a very strong quarter. We beat both revenue and EPS expectations, and PCs were a big part of it. We had a very strong quarter. Year on year, our revenue grew 9% on constant currency. And so, this quarter, we shipped 18 million PCs, which is a record ever. We had never shipped so many PCs, and it was really driven by the demand we see for people working from home and learning from home.
Now, do you think that this is here to stay, or does everybody who's going to be at home have a PC and now we're done?
What we believe is that PCs have become essential.
Okay.
In the past, we were talking about one PC per home. Now we see the need to have one PC per person. So this is going to be driving demand that is going to be staying with us for a while.
Okay, now you've always told me, look, we got to get printers to do better. We got to make more money in ink. How's that progressing?
We are doing well on the print side. Similar to what we have seen on PCs, the demand for consumer printers and consumer supplies have been strong, have been even stronger than what it was before COVID. So we have really done well in that space. And on the commercial side, we have seen improvements through the quarter as the impact on the pandemic in many countries got smaller.
Les ventes de PC ont été formidables, ils sont devenus indispensables. Nous assistons à une tendance où il y avait un 1 à 2 PC par maison. Maintenant, c'est 1 par personne, dit-il. Les ventes de PC en général se sont améliorées de 7% d'une année sur l'autre. Same here for Dell. Surge in demand during the second quarter as more people began working remotely as a result of the pandemic. Michael Dell, PDG de Dell, était en direct sur CNBC pour nous parler des bons résultats du deuxième trimestre.
Operating income 2x, you got certain product lines, order growth in the triple digits. You point out government, you point out schools. Basically, anyone who's working from home or getting ready to send their kids to school certainly can identify with some of the fundamentals that are driving the quarter, at least.
That's right. Our online consumer business was up 79%. So, that was very nice to see. Our revenues grew 4% sequentially. But as you said, earnings were up very strong. EPS was up 43% sequentially. We had double-digit growth in our VxRail, hyperconverged, and data protection products. We had actually triple-digit growth in our flagship high-end storage product, the PowerMax. So really pleased with the way we've been able to respond flexibly and help our customers through this time. We had super strong originations with Dell Financial Services. That was up 31%. We put in place a payment flexibility program that has been really well received. Our deferred revenues were up 14%, driven by maintenance and subscription and SaaS services. Software as a service at VMware and subscription was up 44%. So some very encouraging results in a challenging and uncertain environment for sure.
Les commandes de Dell provenant du secteur de l'éducation ont fait un bond de 24% au cours du deuxième trimestre. Les commandes gouvernementales ont augmenté, elles, de 16%. La société a également constaté une augmentation de la demande pour ses systèmes de jeux. And Facebook is now deeply impacted by new Apple's features. Facebook avertit que les nouvelles fonctionnalités d'iOS 14 pourraient réduire de 50% les revenus du réseau social. Apple a ajouté des fonctionnalités anti-tracking à iOS 14, un coup dur pour les publicités ciblées.
For the last couple of months, Facebook has been warning investors and their developer partners that upcoming changes to the latest version of iOS, just warning them that some of those changes is going to make it more difficult for Facebook to be able to target ads to mobile users on those devices. And specifically, this week, Facebook highlighted that the Facebook Audience Network, which is essentially a plugin that mobile app developers can put into their apps to show ads on their apps, which are targeted using Facebook systems, that in particular is going to be hit. And in fact, Facebook said that it could take such a hit that Audience Network could simply become irrelevant on iOS. So essentially on the iPhone, there's a thing called the IDFA, which is essentially a number for your device. And previously, what developers could do is rely on that number to kind of get a sense of what apps and websites you're going to around the internet and get a sense of what type of things you're interested in and therefore what kind of ads might be relevant to you. But in iOS 14, the change that Apple is making is that going forward, users are going to have to opt into that. And usually when you have to choose to be in something, that friction makes it so that the number of folks who actually opt in is much more reduced. When it comes to Facebook, this is a company that is still, most quarters either 98 or 99% reliant on its advertising business. So advertising is Facebook's bread and butter. Last quarter, they brought in $18.32 billion in advertising, which is quite a bit. And so they're not particularly diversified. As for how much of that comes from Audience Network, the company doesn't really break it out as to which part of its advertising business contributes how much. But we would imagine that it's still quite significant, especially considering just how many people are on iPhones.
Déjà annoncé en juin, Apple change ses fonctionnalités de confidentialité à venir sur iOS 14 et notamment l'obligation pour les développeurs d'applications d'informer les utilisateurs et d'obtenir leur consentement si leur application recueille un code d'appareil unique. Les développeurs d'applications utilisent ce code dans le ciblage d'audience et pour suivre les performances des publicités en ligne. Europe and the US have long disagreed over new tax arrangements for digital giants. Le débat sur une taxe GAFA reprend. Countries disagree on how to tax tech firms such as Amazon and Apple. However, some in Europe believe these companies need to pay more in tax within the region. Let's hear Ireland finance ministers take on this matter.
Well, we have always participated very constructively in the global debate and indeed change in corporate tax policy. Many features of our corporate tax code that were the subject of debate over recent years have now been changed or in some cases are gone. And all of the commitments that we have in terms of change that we need to make under the current BEPS process, we've embraced and we've implemented. And as we've made those changes, we've actually seen our corporate tax revenue increase. All that being said, there is change coming from a global corporate tax perspective, and Ireland wants to be part of this change, but also try to find an equilibrium between the change that is needed and also the ability of, in particular, small countries to be competitive. So as I look at the change that's underway and is due to come, I think there's 2 points that are important for Ireland. The first one is the need for us to constructively participate in the work that's underway in the OECD, which we're going to do. And secondly, we've made so many changes within our economy in recent years, made so many changes in our broader tax policy to try to give our economy now the breadth that it has now, that it didn't have maybe a decade ago or beyond that. So we will be ready for those kind of changes when they come. They may well pose challenges for our economy, but I'm very confident that we will be able to respond to them and ensure that the Irish economy still has a very sustainable revenue base and continues to have the kind of tools available to it to allow it to be competitive.
Je pense que c'est possible. Je pense que les rumeurs de la fin du processus de l'OCDE ont été quelque peu exagérées. Voilà sa réponse quand on lui demande si un accord était encore possible cette année. Je vous le rappelle, l'Irlande a été l'un des rares pays européens à avoir voté contre une taxe numérique à l'échelle de l'UE en 2018. Et si NBC publie son enquête du troisième trimestre et le secteur de la tech semble gagnant, CFOs expect tech sector to continue to grow. According to Bank of America, the US tech sector is now worth more than the entire European stock market. CNBC's Dom Chu reports.
The CNBC CFO Council's latest survey is out, and Dom Chu joins us now with some of the highlights. Good morning, Dom.
Good Friday morning to you, Melissa. 50% of global CFOs say that technology will be the fastest growing sector over the next 6 months as the COVID economy continues to develop work from home and e-commerce levels at unprecedented rates here. But while they believe technology companies will get a boost, 80% of CFOs say COVID-19 will either negatively or very negatively impact their particular businesses. However, 90% of U.S. CFOs say it's the same or easier than a year ago to find qualified talent for their positions within the company. Just about 3/4 of CFOs from Europe and the Middle East and Asia Pacific saying the same thing as well. So you're seeing some developing themes there. When it comes to personnel decisions during the pandemic, more than half of global CFOs say that they expect their company's headcount to decrease over the next 12 months. So maybe not some good news there on the employment front. 20% say they expect an increase. Remote working has become the new normal during the pandemic. Right now, 35% of global CFOs say that half to 3/4 of their workforce is working from home. But by the start of 2021, less than a quarter believe they will see that same level of remote working. So an interesting dynamic there, that this notion that you could see positivity and negativity, but overall, Melissa, it does come down to COVID-19 having a prevailing kind of negative theme for companies and businesses around the world.
L'économie numérique aux États-Unis devrait atteindre 10% du PIB américain au cours de la prochaine décennie. Une véritable opportunité de 1,3 à 5 milliards de dollars par an pour les entreprises informatiques indiennes. Il est l'heure d'annoncer une courte page de pub. We'll come back in a few minutes. Hello everyone and welcome back on Smart World with CNBC. On part aux États-Unis. Let's take a look at the current situation in the United States. Recovery efforts are underway after Hurricane Laura in Louisiana. Le bilan américain de l'ouragan de catégorie 4 s'élève à 14 morts. Reportage.
The CNBC CFO Council's latest survey is out, and Dom Chu joins us now with some of the highlights. Good morning, Dom.
Good Friday morning to you, Melissa. 50% of global CFOs say that technology will be the fastest growing sector over the next 6 months as the COVID economy continues to develop work from home and e-commerce levels at unprecedented rates here. But while they believe technology companies will get a boost, 80% of CFOs say COVID-19 will either negatively or very negatively impact their particular businesses. However, 90% of U.S. CFOs say it's the same or easier than a year ago to find qualified talent for their positions within the company. Just about 3/4 of CFOs from Europe and the Middle East and Asia Pacific saying the same thing as well. So you're seeing some developing themes there. When it comes to personnel decisions during the pandemic, more than half of global CFOs say that they expect their company's headcount to decrease over the next 12 months. So maybe not some good news there on the employment front. 20% say they expect an increase. Remote working has become the new normal during the pandemic. Right now, 35% of global CFOs say that half to 3/4 of their workforce is working from home. But by the start of 2021, less than a quarter believe they will see that same level of remote working. So an interesting dynamic there, that this notion that you could see positivity and negativity, but overall, Melissa, it does come down to COVID-19 having a prevailing kind of negative theme for companies and businesses around the world.
Meantime, let's get an update on the devastation from Hurricane Laura. NBC's Jay Gray is live in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Jay.
Hey, Melissa, it is overwhelming here. In fact, take a look at where we are. You can see the sheared and twisted metal here. Part of what was a gas station before this storm. You can see the pumps over here. When you work your way back across, so you see an empty spot. This pump pulled from the ground by Laura, tossed to somewhere. We haven't even been able to find the gas pump at this point. That's evidence of just how powerful this storm was. And scenes like this, unfortunately, playing out across the region right now. Entire communities either shattered by the winds or wiped away by the water from this Category 4 deadly storm. At least 6 people died in the storm. And there's a real concern from officials here that as they continue to work through this rubble, that number could actually go up here. When you talk to those who are getting back in now, trying to start to clean up, they say they're going to come back. They say that they can rebuild. This is an area used to tornadoes, used to hurricanes, used to inclement weather. They're going to need some resolve, some real strength. The cleanup and recovery here is going to take some time. It's going to be very difficult, Melissa. In fact, I think there are spots where it will be years before they're back.
Wow. Jay, thank you. Jay Gray in Lake Charles, Louisiana for us.
Les restes de l'ouragan Laura ont déclenché de fortes pluies et des tornades à des centaines de kilomètres à l'intérieur des terres. Les météorologistes avertissent qu'un virage à l'est ferait à nouveau de la tempête une menace imminente. La côte la plus densément peuplée serait touchée. And the presidential candidates are keeping an eye on the situation. Climate change is a major issue for the upcoming elections. Une énergie verte, c'est surtout la bataille de Joe Biden. Le candidat démocrate est pour l'instant le favori. Et selon une étude de CNBC, 75% des CFO prédisent désormais que Biden remportera les élections.
Holland has the details of the new CNBC Global CFO Council survey. Frank.
Hey there, Sarah. 75% of global CFOs believe that Joe Biden will win the U.S. presidential election. Really a dramatic change from last quarter when the CFOs were almost split down the middle, still giving Biden a slight edge. The CFOs, they remain split on the congressional races, with 52.5% saying Republicans will retain control of the Senate and Democrats retain control of the House. Nearly a third believe that Democrats will actually win both. Only 5% believe Republicans will win both. Today, the 10-year yield stands right around 0.72%, near historic all-time lows. 45% of CFOs, they see those yields staying in the same range, between 0.5% and 0.75% at the end of 2020. 20% believe they're going to go lower. The Dow, we've been talking about it a lot with the shakeup. While it's now about 3% away from its all-time high, more than a quarter say it will continue to rise until it hits 30,000. However, 42% say it will fall below 25,000 first. Just as a point here, the Dow last falling below 25,000 back in May. Over to you.
L'enquête CNBC montre comment certains dirigeants perçoivent l'impact potentiel de Joe Biden sur l'économie américaine. L'enquête du 3e trimestre, qui comprend les hauts dirigeants de certaines des plus grandes entreprises publiques et privées du monde, montre qu'une écrasante majorité de hauts dirigeants s'attendent à ce que Trump perdent l'élection. Parmi les personnes interrogées, un peu plus de 60% pensent que le Sénat et la Chambre des représentants garderont le contrôle républicain. And racial justice is also at the heart of the U.S. elections. NBA players protested the shooting of Jacob Blake on Sunday. Le PDG de Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, fait actuellement l'objet de critiques de la part de ses employés pour ne pas avoir supprimé des appels à la violence avant les manifestations du Wisconsin.
John, Mark Zuckerberg facing criticism from Facebook employees over the company's failure to pull down Facebook posts inciting violence ahead of the murders in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Zuckerberg posting this excerpt today from the company-wide meeting yesterday in which he addressed why those posts weren't removed sooner. Take a listen.
There have been a bunch of media reports asking, why this page and event weren't removed sooner, especially when, in this case, a bunch of people did report the page. And the reason for this, it was largely an operational mistake.
Facebook and Zuckerberg have had ongoing struggles with the balance between the importance of free speech and also the importance of pulling down incendiary content. And this pressure has really heated up in recent weeks. Guys, back over to you.
Un véritable mea culpa, Mark Zuckerberg reconnaît une erreur opérationnelle. 455 utilisateurs avaient signalé les appels à la violence et Facebook était resté de marbre. Et l'impact de l'arrêt des matchs de la NBA n'a pas eu qu'un impact social. L'entreprise de paris sportifs DraftKings en a pris un coup. Athletes around the world have taken a stand on racial inequality and injustice following the murder of Jacob Blake. Le PDG de DraftKings, Jason Robin, souhaite lui aussi contribuer à cette cause.
Multiple reports say Michael Jordan has played a key role as a go-between for the players and the team owners. Jordan owns the Charlotte Hornets. He is the only black majority owner in the league, and he's also the chairman of the NBA Labor Relations Committee. ESPN says Jordan told team owners that listening is better than talking right now. For more on all of this, joining us now in an exclusive interview is DraftKings CEO Jason Robins, who's here this morning with an announcement. Jason, good morning. Great to have you with us. What's the announcement?
Well, great to be here. We decided that we are going to contribute 100% of the revenues that we make from the first day back of both NBA and WNBA games to causes, to charities and other initiatives that support combating racism and promoting racial justice and social justice in the United States.
And that would be a minimum of $100,000 in donations. Jason, in terms of the protests, how did that impact business? What did you see on your site, or not see, I should say? We did see the stock take an immediate hit on the announcement of the protests, and it's not clear as to what the schedule will actually be for not just the NBA, for other sports as well.
First, while we've guaranteed a minimum of 100, I expect we'll be closer to 500,000 or more in the end. It'll obviously depend on how many people play, but we're hoping that people come out and support this, and we're going to contribute 100%. And this is not a new thing for us. We've been doing this for years. We've supported veterans for many years and have contributed over $1 million to support veterans through initiatives like Vets in Tech. We've contributed over $1 million combined through COVID relief, breast cancer, research support, disaster relief. And this is a cause we're very passionate about. So we're much more focused on that than the day-to-day impact on the business. Obviously, we'd love to see the games resume, and that's something that's important to us. But I think that there's a larger issue at stake here, and this is an important time for us to be talking about that. And our team is very passionate about being able to use our platform to play a role in supporting these issues.
Totally understand, Jason. Obviously, this is a very important cause. At the same time, the stock is taking a hit, and investors sort of want to know what the impact actually is. I mean, do you think that the stock decline that we've seen in response to the protests and in response to canceled games on which bettors cannot bet on when they're canceled, is it commensurate with what you've lost in business, or is it overdone?
I mean, we haven't, I think yesterday the stock was up, so we haven't really seen a huge impact yet. It was down shortly when there were rumors of longer term cancellations, but then it went back up when there was rumors of talks to resume the season. We don't get too caught up in the day to day. I think that the NBA is here to stay. Major League Baseball is here to stay. It's been a strange year. I wouldn't have guessed a few weeks ago that there could be seasons in jeopardy that would have nothing to do with COVID. That's certainly something that we didn't see coming and nobody did. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. We're very focused on building for the long term. We think that there's an exciting opportunity in front of us, and we're really proud today to be supporting an important cause that goes beyond what we do day to day in our business.
Les actions de l'entreprise ont été immédiatement touchées par l'arrêt des matchs, mais ont vite repris. L'entreprise de paris sportifs dit penser plus au long terme qu'à leur profit au jour le jour. Le PDG a décidé de reverser la totalité de leurs revenus sur les paris NBA à des associations contre l'injustice raciale. L'incertitude des matchs est aussi due à la pandémie. Abbott Laboratories announced that its rapid COVID-19 test has received an emergency use authorization from the Food and Drug Administration. Ce test fournirait des résultats en seulement 15 minutes. On fait le point avec l'ancien commissaire de la FDA, Scott Gottlieb.
Joining us now, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, former FDA commissioner on the boards of Pfizer and Illumina and a CNBC contributor. Dr. Gottlieb, this certainly was encouraging news. I know you've been calling for these fast, cheap antigen tests for a while, but why can they only be used at a doctor's office or with a nurse at this point? How far does that go to fully letting us reopen, using them on a plane or at a school or at a movie theater, for instance?
Well, they can be used more widely because they don't require a lot of sophisticated technology, so you can deploy them into a more austere setting. You still need a medical technician to apply the test under the current rules, under the current way it's being regulated. But you can push it into, for example, a school and have a school nurse administer it or have a nurse administer it in a workplace. So I think it's going to get more wide use. And even though it's not approved for routine screening of an asymptomatic population, you heard the CEO saying they're collecting additional data to prove that utility of the test. I suspect it's going to be used that way right out of the gate. And the sensitivity will go down as you use it as a screening tool for an asymptomatic population. But given the very high sensitivity of the test in a symptomatic population, you'd still expect it to be a pretty good tool for those purposes, especially given the price point and the ease of use. So this really is going to be a meaningful change in the market. You have to give Abbott some credit for investing significantly in manufacturing and coming to market with really substantial manufacturing. I think the only question is how much of the existing runs of this product have the federal government cornered. And we know the federal government stepped in with a big contract to purchase 150 million of these. And so it's not clear to me how much is going to be available for the private supply and private supply chains, and how much is going to be cornered by the federal government and reallocated to schools and nursing homes, which is obviously an important use, but there's going to be other people who want to get their hands on this.
Un test antigène rapide Covid-19 permettra à plus de personnes de se faire tester. Un besoin essentiel à l'heure actuelle aux États-Unis. Les médias américains semblent à l'unanimité féliciter cette nouvelle. Ça change la donne, titre CNN par exemple. Les tests d'antigènes qui recherchent des anticorps ne sont pas aussi fiables que les tests PCR cependant. Suite à la pandémie, certains géants de la consommation touchés par la crise rebondissent enfin. C'est le cas par exemple de Colgate. L'entreprise est désormais en hausse de 30% depuis son creux de mars. Sarah Eisen de CNBC nous explique pourquoi.
This household goods giant, it felt like most of the market after the pandemic hit in the U.S. back in March. But since its March low, it's up 30%. Sarah Eisen, she covers the consumer and joins us live with more on Colgate. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Frank. Everyday items like toilet paper and toothpaste are in demand, and so are their stocks. And that includes Colgate. It's actually up more than 35% from that March low, which is remarkable in terms of a recovery, but not as impressive as some of the gains of its competitors like Procter & Gamble and Clorox. Why? Well, long-term, Colgate's been losing share, and it hasn't convinced Wall Street of a longer-run growth story. Now, we should say Colgate, like its peers, is seeing a ton of demand at the moment for basics. They own soft soap, Irish Spring, Palmolive. All those cleaning products are in high demand. They also own Hill's Pet Food, which has also seen a pandemic-fueled spike, along with some of the other pet brands. And of course, toothpaste with the namesake brand and others like Tom's. People always need it in good times and in bad. However, one issue is that a lot of the grocery hoarding and stock-ups we've seen are seen by Wall Street as temporary. And Colgate isn't giving a long-term guidance like Procter & Gamble and Kimberly-Clark, indicating it's confident that the demand keeps up. Colgate is also very global. They've got big exposure in Latin America and India, both with rising cases of COVID-19 and very volatile currencies, which cut into their earnings. Where could growth come from for Colgate? Well, e-commerce, like all consumer companies right now, is a very exciting story here. Innovation is key. Colgate has been producing new smart electric toothbrushes, for instance, which ultimately could help with another key growth goal, which is gaining market share in a category that Colgate dominates, toothbrushes and toothpaste, but is also losing share. Colgate needs to prove itself that this is more than just a pandemic-related bump in business, like its competitors have done, especially Procter & Gamble, which owns Crest.
Les Américains, anxieux face à la pandémie, font bondir certains produits. Ils restent préoccupés par l'hygiène tant que le virus continue de circuler. Avec plus de 186 000 décès au total aux États-Unis, la tendance ne devrait pas ralentir pour le moment. Ce n'est pas le cas par contre de Coca-Cola. The company said it would nearly halve its operating units and offer voluntary separation to 4,000 workers, including in the United States. La multinationale prévoit de se restructurer après la plus forte baisse des ventes trimestrielles depuis plus de 25 ans.
News out of Coca-Cola this morning, the company realigning its 17 business units into a 9-unit structure and planning to offer buyout packages to 4,000 workers. Sarah Eisen just spoke with Coke's CEO, and she joins us now on the Squawk Newsline with some more detail and color. Sarah, what did you hear? What's behind this move?
Good morning, Mike. I think the biggest headline from James Quincy, the CEO of Coca-Cola, about this restructuring is it's not driven by the pandemic, he tells me. It was sped up by the pandemic, but the effort is to set Coca-Cola up for future growth. So here's what Coke is announcing today. Those 17 business units go to 9 under 4 geographies. They're trying to get leaner. They're trying to get faster to market. And the ultimate priority here is they're trying to get better marketing. And yes, there will be layoffs as a result of these changes. 4,000 jobs are eligible in North America, the U.S., Puerto Rico, Canada, which is actually a sizable chunk of employees. They have about 10,800 in the region. So as many as 35% eligible for layoffs here. Now, Coca-Cola CEO James Quincy says they are trying to get back to growth, evolving the way they do marketing, more scaled winners, how they digitize the company and data analytics, flatter operation, all of these things behind it. I asked him if it was about the weakness they've seen. Coca-Cola has half of its business outside the home, so it really got slammed on the lockdowns and restaurants and stadiums closing. He said he sticks by what he said last quarter, which was April was the bottom, and they continue to see steadily improving volumes as economies open up. Quincy tells me, I think COVID will pass. This is really about setting ourselves up. And these discussions began as early as January, guys, before the pandemic. It's just allowed them to really focus on a few number of brands. They have more than 400. Less than half of those contribute mostly to revenue. And that's where the focus is going to be on marketing and on growth. And so there's going to be a lot of readjustments here on the way that they're announcing today.
Alors que la demande pour ces produits à domicile a été robuste, Coca-Cola a été affecté par la fermeture de lieux sociaux comme les cinémas ou encore les stades. Ces marchés représentent environ la moitié de ses revenus annuels. And Coca-Cola has also been impacted by the drop of flights, une période noire pour l'industrie aéronautique. United Airlines to cut 2,850 pilot jobs without more US government aid. Après American Airlines, United Airlines n'arrive plus à couvrir les coûts salariaux.
Hey, John, take a look at shares of United. We're not seeing a whole lot of reaction to the news that the company, that actually came out from an internal note within the company within the last half hour, that United will be furloughing 2,850 pilots starting on October 1st, going all the way through November 30th. The pilots union reacting, saying, look, it didn't have to be this way. There were other options as opposed to going straight to a furlough. By the way, 1,747 of those pilots, they're laid off on October 1st. The remainder happening on November 1st and then on November 30th. But again, you take a look at shares of United, no reaction here, mainly because, guys, I think most people said, we know that they're going to be a smaller airline come October 1st. Now we're just starting to put some numbers to those types of cuts that we're going to see.
Les suppressions d'emplois de United devraient avoir lieu entre le 1er octobre et le 30 novembre prochain. Les chiffres sont nettement supérieurs à ceux annoncés plus tôt cette semaine par les rivaux comme Delta Airlines et American Airlines. Je vous le rappelle, United est plus exposé que ses pairs aux voyages internationaux, ce qui devrait lui prendre plus de temps à se remettre de la pandémie. And how to team up renewables and greenhouses. It feels like this challenge is all leaders could talk about before COVID-19. High-tech greenhouses could be the future of agriculture. Les serres sont utilisées par les jardiniers depuis plusieurs centaines d'années. Mais aux Pays-Bas, les autorités veulent rendre le secteur plus durable. Regardez.
The Netherlands, famous for its cheese, its flowers, and its greenhouses.
The greenhouse was invented in the Netherlands in the 19th century when they started putting grapes under glass to improve production.
And now the country is exporting its know-how abroad. China and the Middle East are the largest markets. But there is one problem.
When you build a greenhouse nowadays, there will be limitations on where you can build because it all depends on availability of energy.
A global leader in greenhouse building, Dutch company Van der Hoeven is embracing sustainable sources of energy, such as geothermal. But it's solar power that has the greatest potential, so they're partnering with energy startup company Solho.
This is the only solar energy-based system that can power a greenhouse farm 24/7. And what it does is it uses solar energy as an input to generate all the energy flows required to operate a greenhouse farm: heating, cooling, and electricity. So what you can see in this picture is a solar field of flat plate collectors. So we heat up water, we store it in our thermal storage, which we call the test mod. And then from here, we harvest this thermal energy either for heating or for cooling through a thermal chiller or for electricity through a power unit. So in this way, we end up with a system that uses only the sun to generate all the energy streams required to operate a greenhouse farms.
With a growing demand in sustainably sourced produce, greenhouse designers and operators have been investing in research into renewable energies. So greenhouses could contribute to a greener agriculture globally. They offer water recycling, CO2 capturing solutions, and even natural pollination. But they are limited in the type of crops they can produce.
Il y a une demande pour les clients de construire des serres durables avec une utilisation efficace de l'énergie et de réduire autant que possible l'utilisation d'eau douce et d'électricité. Ce sont les mots des autorités hollandaises. L'entreprise que vous venez de voir dans ce reportage utilise l'énergie solaire pour générer tous les flux d'énergie nécessaires au fonctionnement de la serre, c'est-à-dire chauffage, refroidissement et électricité. Et le recyclage des plastiques est en train cependant d'échouer. À l'échelle mondiale, plus de 350 millions de tonnes métriques de plastique sont produites chaque année. Mais selon l'OCDE, seulement 14 à 18% sont recyclés. Many environmentalists say this means we need to stop plastic production at the source. Voici l'enquête du jour de CNBC.
Basically, mechanical recycling in the U.S. just isn't profitable without incentives or subsidies.
Virgin plastic is incredibly cheap, and we are seeing traditional mechanical recycling operations shutting down because it simply does not pay. They cannot sell their recycled plastic at a rate that would justify paying people to collect it.
But even as states like California try to prop up their curbside recycling programs and centers with subsidies, there's still just so much that can go wrong. While number 1 and number 2 plastics are recyclable, about 70% end up in a landfill or incinerator anyway.
It's too contaminated or it's too difficult to separate, and then the recycled polymer is sort of low grade. And then on top of that, it's typically too expensive.
Absent strong regulation, public pressure, or true altruism, there's just no reason why a corporation would pay more for lower quality recycled plastic.
So we need to find something else. And then, of course, something else would be switch materials or source reduction, use less. But obviously, that would be bad news for the plastic industry. So I think they see the only way forward is chemical recycling.
Enter chemical recycling, a process that can break down any plastic, type 1 through 7, into its molecular building blocks, and then theoretically convert it into virgin quality plastic, chemicals, or diesel and petrol fuels.
There's been a huge investment in these chemical recycling technologies in recent years. They've been very hyped by industry. They're saying that these technologies are going to allow them to capture a much broader stream of plastics and turn them back into plastics like new, so we could get more of a circular economy with that.
The most common technology used in this process, pyrolysis, is not new. It involves heating up a material like waste plastic in an oxygen-starved environment, which causes it to break down into a mix of simpler compounds, which are then used as building blocks for new products. But critiques abound. Tongri's organization, the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives, or GAIA, recently released a report which concluded that no chemical recycling facility in the U.S. is turning plastic back into plastic at a commercial scale yet, though there's been many attempts. Of the 37 chemical recycling facilities proposed in the U.S. since 2000, GAIA reports that only 3 are operational, and they're mostly turning plastic into fuel, which the organization calls the opposite of an eco-friendly solution. The companies themselves, though, beg to differ. Brightmark, founded in 2016, is building a commercial-scale plastics-to-fuel plant in Ashley, Indiana, and aims to process 100,000 tons of plastic by 2021. It will sell fuel from this plant to BP.
So ultimately, our goal is to produce less combustible fuels. There are at least 14% less greenhouse gas emissions associated with the fuels that we produce versus pulling crude oil or natural gas out of the ground.
In addition to fuels, Brightmark's process also produces paraffin waxes, and Powell says the tech is ready to convert plastic back into plastic. They just need customers.
I think the market is there, and I think what you would see from us in the future is relationships with folks that achieve our goals around circularity and their goals around circularity, because we can do it now.
But in the meantime, Tongri questions whether turning plastic into fossil fuel is really a solution worth supporting.
Is plastic to fuel better than, say, syngas derived from coal? Yeah, probably, but who uses that? It's on its way out. These are not clean fuels. Whether they are absolutely the dirtiest, or they're the second dirtiest, or they're the third dirtiest, they're clearly fossil fuels, and they are highly contaminated fossil fuels.
Then there's UK-based Plastic Energy, which is turning plastic back into plastic on a commercial scale at 2 facilities in Spain.
We targeted to have a processing capacity sometime by 2023 of about 300,000 tons of end-of-life plastics per year.
Much like Brightmark, the company started off producing fuels, also through a pyrolysis-based process that converted plastic waste into naphtha and diesel. But now, Montreal says they're totally focused on plastic-to-plastic recycling.
Since April this year, 100% of our tech oil is used to create new plastics. We are committed to the creation of a circular economy for plastics going forward.
Monreal says that Europe's ambitious environmental goals provide unique incentives for this type of technology to flourish.
We have commitments to double the recycling quotas in Europe from about 5 million today per year to 10 million tons per year by 2025.
He also cites Europe's high landfilling fees and multi-stream recycling infrastructure as advantageous. With plastic, glass, and cardboard already separated at the source, Plastic Energy can acquire difficult-to-recycle plastics more easily and economically than in the U.S. As the company tries to increase its processing capacity by over 2,000% in the next 3 years, it may face competition from Oregon-based Agilix, which is also trying to turn plastics back into plastics and is looking to expand internationally.
We have a pathway and a roadmap to take plastic recycling from the current 10% to upwards of 90%.
Agilix was one of the earliest companies in this space. Founded in 2004, it ran a plastics-to-fuel operation until 2015, providing jet fuel to the Department of Defense. Low oil prices forced the company to pivot, and now Agilix specializes in converting polystyrene back into styrene, which is used to make disposable cups, takeout containers, and packing foam. Agilix is often hailed as a leader in the space, but Gaia has called its efficiency into question, reporting that only 1/10 of the waste that Agilix processed in 2018 was actually turned into styrene, a figure that the company disputes.
So yes, they were significantly off on the yield numbers. And if our yields were in a 10 to 20% range, we would not have an economic plastic recycling pathway that the top companies in polystyrene have embraced.
While Gaia says the company has not proven that it's capable of recycling plastic on a commercial scale, Agilix is planning to expand its capacity across the US, Europe, and Asia, in conjunction with a number of petrochemical partners such as America's Styrenics and Ineos.
The facility in Chicago that we're developing with Ineos Styrolution will be 100 tons per day, 10 times the size of our Tigard, Oregon facility. And as we replicate those, the scale of our recycled styrene will begin to have a significant impact on the market.
Cooper says the company hasn't run a life cycle analysis to see how its recycled polystyrene compares to virgin polystyrene, but estimates the process to be between 40 to 70% cleaner. This number, too, is up for debate. But it's more than just a disagreement over statistics. Fundamentally, it's a disagreement over priorities. Basically, there's not a consensus on whether chemical recycling will represent an important part of the plastic waste solution or an expensive distraction from what many believe ought to be the real priority, making less plastic.
There are people who embrace chemical recycling as an emerging technology with an evolution path. There are others more focused on reducing the amount of plastics that we use as a country and as a world.
Not surprisingly, there's big policy disagreements as well. For example, the fact that plastic industry groups enthusiastically support chemical recycling while opposing policies like single-use plastic bans or plastic taxes leaves many skeptical that the industry would ever pursue eco-friendliness over profits.
The industry is investing so much money in chemical recycling because they really want to convince us that they can continue to churn out ever large quantities of plastic and solve the problem downstream.
Tongri and many other environmentalists believe that instead of pursuing chemical recycling, the plastic waste problem is best addressed through legislation, in particular, extended producer responsibility laws that force plastic producers to bear the cost for the environmental impacts of their products.
There are proposals that would impose a tax on plastic producers proportional to the environmental and health harm that they cause.
L'industrie du plastique parie gros sur une technologie appelée le recyclage chimique. Cette technologie peut apparemment prendre n'importe quel type de plastique usagé et le convertir en plastique comme neuf. Cependant, les groupes environnementaux expriment leur scepticisme quant à sa faisabilité technique et économique, ainsi que son empreinte carbone. Thank you all for being with us. Merci à tous d'avoir participé à ce format 100% hybride. See you very soon for the rest of international news.